Commander Zix-9 stood before the massive viewing screen aboard the Galactic cruiser, Starfall, and watched the small blue planet spin slowly in the darkness of space. His four eyes moved across the surface as data streams flowed beside the image. Population numbers, resource counts, military assessments, and cultural analysis filled the screen with cold facts about the world the locals called Earth. The bridge around him buzzed with activity as crew members from a dozen different species worked at their stations. The Corvani Empire had assembled this mixed force specifically for first contact missions with primitive worlds. Each species brought their own expertise to the evaluation process. The Vorthans handled military analysis with their natural warrior instincts. The crystalline Nexari managed technological assessments through their enhanced computational abilities. The gaseous ethereals provided cultural and psychological evaluations using their collective consciousness. Lieutenant Kresh approached the command platform with a datapad clutched in his scaled claws. The Vorthan's reptilian features twisted into what passed for disgust among his people. His forked tongue flicked out to taste the recycled air as he prepared his report. "Commander, the preliminary analysis of the human species is complete," Kresh said, his voice carrying the characteristic hiss of his people. "I must say, this may be one of the most violent species we have encountered in recent cycles." Zix-9 turned his attention from the planet to his subordinate. The Corvani had evolved from peaceful herd animals and found violence distasteful in most circumstances. However, his role as a commander required him to understand the military capabilities of potential Federation members. "Show me the data," the commander said, activating the central holographic display. Images began flowing through the air above them. Scenes of human warfare throughout their history appeared in sequence. Ancient battles with primitive weapons gave way to more sophisticated conflicts. The Industrial Age brought mechanized death on unprecedented scales. The Atomic Age introduced weapons capable of destroying entire cities in moments. The bridge crew gathered around to witness the display. Gasps and clicks of disapproval echoed from various species as they watched humans fight with a ferocity that seemed to know no bounds. The footage showed soldiers fighting in conditions that would break the spirit of most galactic species. Trenches filled with mud and death, cities reduced to rubble, civilians caught in crossfire. "Look at this," Kresh said, highlighting a particular sequence. "They call this period their Second World War. Over 60 million of their own species died in just 6 years. They created weapons of such destructive power that they could end all life on their world." A Nexari officer chimed in with crystalline tones. "The psychological profiles are equally disturbing. They show capacity for extreme loyalty to abstract concepts like nations and ideologies. They will die for ideas that have no physical form." The ethereal representative spoke through the communication system, its gaseous form unable to directly interact with solid matter. Their cultural patterns show repeated cycles of violence followed by brief periods of peace. Even their entertainment focuses heavily on conflict and combat scenarios. Zix-9 studied the data more carefully. The humans had indeed fought constantly throughout their recorded history. Their weapons had evolved from simple clubs to devices capable of splitting atoms. Their tactics had grown from basic formations to complex strategies involving multiple domains of warfare. Most concerning was their apparent willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. "What about their current military status?" the commander asked. Kresh manipulated the display to show more recent human activities. Space-based installations appeared alongside images of their primitive spacecraft and basic energy weapons. Compared to Galactic standard technology, human equipment looked crude and inefficient. "The space capabilities are minimal," Kresh reported. "Basic chemical propulsion, limited life support systems, and weapons that barely qualify as military grade. Their largest warships would struggle against our smallest patrol craft." Another officer added information about human social structure. They remain divided into competing nation-states that maintain separate military forces. No unified command structure exists. Their resource allocation is inefficient due to duplicated efforts. The display showed human soldiers training in various environments: desert warfare, jungle combat, urban fighting, and Arctic survival. The observers noted the brutal nature of human training methods: physical conditioning that pushed bodies to breaking points, mental preparation that included controlled exposure to extreme stress, combat drills that seemed designed to prepare for the worst possible scenarios. "They appear to train for total war," one officer observed. "Not the limited conflicts we see among most species, but complete destruction of enemy forces." Zix-9 nodded thoughtfully. The humans did seem exceptionally violent compared to most galactic species. Their history read like a catalog of warfare techniques and battlefield innovations. Every generation had found new ways to kill their enemies more effectively, yet something about the data troubled him. Despite their violent nature, humans had managed to avoid destroying themselves completely. They had developed weapons capable of ending their civilization, but had chosen not to use them after their first demonstration. Their wars, while brutal, had actually decreased in frequency and scale in recent centuries. "Commander," another officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." The main screen shifted to show a human face. The being appeared young by human standards, with short brown hair and green eyes. He wore what appeared to be a military uniform with various insignia and decorations. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth's Interstellar Defense Corps," the human said. "We understand that representatives of the Galactic Federation wish to evaluate our military capabilities. We're honored by your interest and ready to demonstrate what humanity can offer to the galactic community." The bridge crew exchanged glances. The human's tone was respectful but confident. He showed no signs of fear or intimidation despite facing representatives of a galactic civilization far more advanced than his own. Zix-9 activated the communication system. "Captain Morrison, I am Commander Zix-9 of the Corvani Empire. We represent the Galactic Federation's Evaluation Committee. Your species has been selected for possible membership in our organization. However, this requires demonstration of your military capabilities according to our standards." Morrison nodded. "We understand, Commander. My team and I are prepared for whatever tests you deem appropriate. We've been authorized to represent humanity's best efforts in this evaluation." Kresh leaned toward Zix-9 and whispered, "Best efforts? If these are their elite forces, this evaluation should be brief and decisive." The commander studied Morrison's face more carefully. The human showed none of the nervous energy he expected from a primitive species facing advanced galactic technology. Instead, Morrison appeared calm and ready, as if military evaluation was simply another routine assignment. "Very well, Captain," Zix-9 replied. "Prepare your forces for transport to our testing facility. You will face a series of scenarios designed to evaluate your tactical thinking, combat effectiveness, and operational capabilities." Morrison smiled slightly. "Understood, Commander. My team is ready for immediate deployment. We won't disappoint you." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Several officers looked uncertain about what they had witnessed. The human had shown no surprise at being contacted by aliens, no wonder at advanced technology, and no concern about facing unknown challenges. Deep in the classified sections of Earth, Dr. Alex Turner received an encrypted message on his secure terminal. The simple text read, "First contact initiated. Evaluation beginning. Baba Yaga status. Stand by." He leaned back in his chair and considered the implications. The galactic community was about to learn something about humanity that even most humans didn't know. Turner hoped they were prepared for the education they were about to receive. The transport beam deposited Captain Jake Morrison and his team onto the deck of the Starfall with a shimmer of blue light. Morrison looked around the alien vessel with professional interest rather than wonder. The technology was impressive but not overwhelming. His team maintained discipline as they took in their surroundings. Sergeant Lisa Kane stood at Morrison's right shoulder. Her blonde hair was pulled back in regulation style, and her blue eyes scanned the alien crew with tactical awareness. She counted positions, noted weapon placements, and identified potential cover points without appearing to do so. Staff Sergeant Ryan Brooks examined the deck plating beneath his boots. The material seemed standard for starship construction, though the artificial gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. His dark skin showed no signs of stress despite being surrounded by beings from other worlds. Lieutenant Amy Foster kept her auburn hair tucked under her helmet and maintained perfect posture. Her green eyes tracked the movement patterns of the alien crew. She noted that most species seemed to move in predictable ways based on their physical structure. Commander Zix-9 approached the human group with formal steps. His four eyes studied the humans carefully, looking for signs of fear or confusion. Instead, he found soldiers who appeared ready for duty regardless of the exotic circumstances. "Welcome aboard the Starfall, Captain Morrison," the commander said through a translation device. "I trust the transport process was acceptable," Morrison nodded. "Perfectly adequate, Commander. My team is ready to begin evaluation procedures at your convenience." The casual confidence in Morrison's voice surprised several alien observers. Lieutenant Kresh moved closer to study the humans more carefully. They wore standard military equipment that looked primitive compared to galactic standards. Simple ballistic armor, chemical projectile weapons, and basic communication devices. "If you will follow me," Zix-9 said, "I will show you to the testing facility." The group moved through corridors filled with alien crew members. Humans drew stares and whispered comments in various languages. Some aliens pointed at the primitive equipment the humans carried. Others seemed amused by their small size compared to larger galactic species. Kane noticed that the alien crew moved in ways that suggested they had never faced truly dangerous opponents. Their positioning was poor for defense. Their awareness levels were adequate for shipboard duties but insufficient for combat situations. She filed this information away without changing her expression. The testing facility turned out to be a massive chamber that could project holographic environments. Banks of monitoring equipment surrounded the central area where scenarios would play out. Observation decks allowed the evaluation committee to watch from safety. "The first test is straightforward," Commander Zix-9 explained as the humans checked their equipment. "You will face an assault scenario against automated defense systems. Most species require significant time to adapt to the technology involved. We expect this will demonstrate the learning curve your people might face in galactic conflicts." Morrison listened to the explanation while mentally cataloging the information. The test was designed to show human limitations rather than capabilities. The aliens expected them to struggle with unfamiliar technology and tactics. "Understood, Commander," Morrison replied. "Are there any restrictions on our methods or equipment usage?" Kresh spoke up from his position near the observation deck. "You may use whatever techniques you consider appropriate. The objective is simply to neutralize the defensive positions and advance to the target zone." The humans moved into position. As the holographic environment materialized around them, an urban setting appeared with multiple defensive positions scattered throughout the area. Energy weapons began tracking toward their location as soon as they entered the scenario. Morrison made a series of hand signals that seemed random to the observing aliens. His team spread out in a pattern that violated standard galactic military doctrine. Instead of maintaining formation integrity, they scattered into individual positions. Kane moved through shadows that shouldn't have provided adequate cover. Her path took her behind positions that should have detected her approach. The automated defenses tracked her movement but seemed unable to acquire targeting locks. Brooks approached a defensive emplacement from an angle that exposed him to crossfire from multiple positions. The aliens expected him to be eliminated quickly. Instead, he seemed to know exactly when each weapon would fire and moved accordingly. Foster coordinated the team's movements using signals so subtle that alien observers couldn't detect them. She appeared to be operating independently while somehow maintaining perfect timing with her teammates. The first defensive position fell within minutes. The humans had somehow flanked an automated system that was designed to prevent flanking maneuvers. The weapons were neutralized before they could effectively engage any of the human soldiers. Lieutenant Kresh leaned forward in his observation seat. How are they communicating? Our sensors detect no electronic signals between them. Commander Zix-9 studied the tactical display more carefully. The humans were indeed coordinating their actions without detectable communication methods. They moved like parts of a single organism rather than individual soldiers. The second position proved more challenging. The defensive systems had been programmed to learn from initial engagements and adapt accordingly. Higher energy outputs and faster tracking should have made advancement impossible. Morrison's team adapted faster than the automated defenses. They began using the environment in ways that confused the targeting systems. Kane reflected energy beams off reflective surfaces to blind sensors. Brooks used debris to create false signatures that drew fire away from real positions, Foster identified. The central control node for the defensive network through observation alone. She guided Morrison toward the position using hand signals that looked like casual gestures to alien observers. The entire defensive network collapsed when Morrison disabled the control system. The urban scenario dissolved as the test concluded. The humans regrouped in the center of the chamber and checked their equipment as if they had completed a routine training exercise. Silence filled the observation deck as alien officers tried to understand what they had witnessed. The automated defenses were designed to challenge veteran galactic forces. Most species required multiple attempts to successfully complete the scenario. Time to completion? Commander Zix-9 asked. A Nexari officer consulted the data streams. 18 minutes, 47 seconds. Previous record was held by Corvani Special Forces at 31 minutes, 12 seconds. Morrison looked up toward the observation deck. Is there a second test, Commander? My team is ready to continue. The casual tone of his question sent a chill through several alien observers. The humans showed no signs of stress or fatigue. They appeared to consider the record-breaking performance as unremarkable, Commander. Zix-9 activated the communication system. That concludes the first evaluation, Captain. Your performance was ... We'll prepare the second scenario shortly. Kane smiled slightly as she overheard alien conversations through the chamber's acoustics. Several species were expressing concern about human capabilities. Others were questioning whether the test parameters had been correctly calibrated. Brooks noticed that alien security personnel had moved to more defensive positions around the observation areas. The casual confidence they had shown earlier was being replaced by professional wariness. Foster mentally cataloged the alien reactions to human performance. Fear, confusion, and growing respect were evident in their body language and vocal patterns. The galactic community was beginning to realize that humanity might not fit their expectations. Deep in his Earth facility, Dr. Alex Turner received an updated report on the evaluation progress. The message was brief, first contact proceeding normally. Human performance within expected parameters. Galactic forces showing initial concern. Baba Yaga remains on standby. Turner leaned back in his chair and smiled. The galactic community was about to learn that their preconceptions about humanity were based on incomplete information. The real education hadn't even begun yet. Commander Zix-9 stood in the center of the observation deck with his officers arranged around him in a loose circle. The successful completion of the first test had created an uncomfortable atmosphere among the galactic evaluation team. Whispered conversations in various alien languages filled the space as different species tried to understand what they had witnessed. The second scenario will be more challenging, Lieutenant Kresh announced as he manipulated the holographic controls. We have prepared an urban hostage rescue operation. The humans must extract civilian targets from a hostile environment while minimizing collateral damage. The Nexari officer responsible for scenario parameters added technical details. The environment includes 47 civilian artificial intelligences scattered throughout a 12-block urban area. Enemy forces are positioned to maximize defensive advantage while using civilians as shields. An ethereal representative communicated through the translation system. This test reveals species priorities when forced to choose between mission, success, and civilian casualties. Most galactic forces accept reasonable losses to achieve objectives efficiently. Morrison and his team stood ready in the staging area as the holographic city materialized around them. Tall buildings created narrow streets filled with shadows and potential ambush points. Civilian figures moved through the environment following programmed behavior patterns. Enemy positions were clearly marked for the observing aliens but invisible to the human participants. Sniper nests occupied high windows. Machine gun emplacements covered major intersections. Patrol units moved through alleys between buildings. The test parameters allowed for up to 30% civilian casualties without mission failure. Standard Galactic doctrine considered this an acceptable margin for urban combat operations. Most species completed the scenario by overwhelming enemy positions with superior firepower. Morrison studied the environment for exactly 30 seconds before making his first decision. Instead of advancing toward the obvious entry points, he led his team through what appeared to be the most dangerous route possible. Sergeant Kane moved through shadows that shouldn't have provided adequate concealment. Her path took her past multiple enemy positions without triggering alarms or drawing fire. She seemed to understand the sight lines and blind spots of each defensive position. Staff Sergeant Brooks approached a group of civilians who were positioned near an enemy strong point. Rather than avoiding the area, he moved directly toward the most dangerous location. The aliens expected him to trigger a firefight that would result in significant civilian casualties. Instead, Brooks seemed to communicate with the civilian artificial intelligences without using any detectable method. The program figures began moving away from the combat zone in patterns that appeared random but actually cleared sight lines for his teammates. Lieutenant Foster identified enemy positions through observation methods that confused the alien observers. She pointed out targets that were hidden from direct view and guided her team around obstacles that shouldn't have been visible to ground-level personnel. The first enemy position fell without alerting nearby forces. Kane had somehow approached from an angle that the defensive programming hadn't anticipated. The enemy soldiers were neutralized before they could call for reinforcements or threaten nearby civilians. Lieutenant Kresh leaned forward in his observation chair. How did she know about that approach route? Our tactical analysis indicated it was impossible to reach that position undetected. Commander Zix-9 studied the tactical display more carefully. The human had indeed found a path that their own military advisors had missed. The route required precise timing and an understanding of enemy psychology that seemed beyond what primitive forces should possess. The second engagement proved more complex. Multiple enemy units occupied a building containing 15 civilian hostages. Standard Galactic procedure called for overwhelming assault followed by casualty assessment. Most species accepted that some hostages would be lost in the process. Morrison's team split into smaller units that seemed to violate basic military doctrine. They separated beyond mutual support distance and approached the building from different angles. The aliens expected this dispersal to result in the humans being defeated individually. Brooks appeared at ground level while Kane reached an upper floor through methods that weren't clearly visible to the monitoring systems. Foster seemed to be in multiple positions simultaneously, or perhaps the humans were moving faster than the tracking equipment could follow the enemy forces inside. The building found themselves fighting opponents who seemed to know their positions and intentions before they could act. Morrison's team neutralized threats with precision that avoided any risk to civilian lives. 0 civilian casualties so far, the Nexari officer reported with surprise in its crystalline voice. Human forces are achieving mission objectives while maintaining perfect protection of non-combatants. The third engagement involved a more complex scenario. Enemy forces had taken position in a crowded marketplace where civilian and hostile figures were intermixed. Identification required split-second decisions. Under combat stress, most galactic species solved this problem by establishing free-fire zones and accepting that some civilians would be mistakenly targeted. The test parameters allowed for reasonable errors in target identification. Kane moved through the marketplace like she belonged there. She seemed to understand the difference between civilian and enemy artificial intelligences through methods that didn't rely on visual identification. Her weapon never targeted innocent figures despite the confusion and chaos. Brooks coordinated with Morrison using signals so subtle that alien observers couldn't detect them. They moved through crowds of mixed figures while maintaining perfect target discrimination. Every shot hit an enemy combatant while avoiding any risk to nearby civilians. Foster demonstrated an understanding of crowd psychology that allowed her to predict how civilian figures would react to combat stress. She positioned herself to intercept enemy movements while ensuring that panicked civilians moved away from danger zones. The marketplace engagement concluded with all hostiles neutralized and 0 civilian casualties. The human team regrouped in the center of the scenario as if they had completed another routine training exercise. Commander Zix-9 found himself staring at performance metrics that challenged everything he understood about urban combat operations. "What was the civilian casualty count?" he asked quietly. 0 casualties, 0 injuries, 0 incidents of mistaken targeting, the monitoring officer reported. All 47 civilian artificial intelligences survived without harm. Silence filled the observation deck as alien officers tried to process this information. Perfect civilian protection was considered impossible in urban combat scenarios. Even their most elite forces accepted that some innocent casualties were unavoidable, Lieutenant. Kresh spoke in a voice that carried uncertainty rather than confidence. Perhaps the scenario parameters were incorrectly calibrated. No force should be capable of such precise discrimination under combat conditions. Morrison looked up toward the observation deck. "Commander, my team is ready for the next test." "Should we prepare for a different scenario type?" The casual confidence in Morrison's voice disturbed several alien observers. The humans showed no signs of stress despite completing what should have been an impossible mission. They appeared to consider perfect civilian protection as a basic requirement rather than an exceptional achievement. An ethereal representative communicated concern through the translation system. "These humans demonstrate capabilities that exceed our analytical models. Their performance suggests either advanced technology or enhanced biological abilities." Commander Zix-9 studied the human team more carefully. Their equipment remained primitive by galactic standards. Their physical capabilities appeared normal for their species. Yet their performance exceeded that of forces with access to superior technology and training. "Prepare the third scenario," he ordered with reluctance. "Increase difficulty parameters to maximum settings." Deep in his Earth facility, Dr. Alex Turner received another status update. Second evaluation complete. Human performance continues within expected ranges. Galactic forces showing increased concern levels. Recommend maintaining current operational parameters. Turner smiled as he read the report. The galactic community was beginning to understand that their assumptions about humanity were flawed. However, they still hadn't grasped the true nature of what they were observing. The real surprises were yet to come. The observation deck aboard the Starfall had grown tense as alien officers watched human performance exceed every expectation. Commander Zix-9 stood with his arms crossed behind his back, studying tactical displays that showed impossible results. 2 perfect scores in scenarios designed to challenge the galaxy's elite forces, Lieutenant. Kresh approached with visible agitation in his reptilian features. His scales had shifted to darker colors that indicated stress among his species. The datapad in his claws contained information that would change the nature of the evaluation. "Commander, I recommend implementing Protocol 7, Kresh said in a low voice. "These humans are performing beyond acceptable parameters for primitive species. We need to determine their true capabilities." Commander Zix-9 turned his 4 eyes toward his subordinate. Protocol 7 involved deploying actual Corvani military units instead of automated systems or simulations. It was reserved for species that posed potential threats to galactic security. "Explain your reasoning, Lieutenant." Kresh activated a holographic display that showed human performance metrics compared to known galactic species. Red indicators highlighted areas where human capabilities exceeded established norms by significant margins. Their tactical awareness suggests intelligence-gathering methods we cannot detect, Kresh explained. Their coordination exceeds what should be possible without advanced technology. Their precision in combat scenarios surpasses our elite units. Other officers gathered around to examine the data. Murmurs of concern echoed from various species as they recognized the implications. A primitive world had somehow produced soldiers who outperformed galactic standards. The Nexari officer added its crystalline voice to the discussion. Analysis indicates these humans possess capabilities that should not exist in their technological context. Either they have hidden technology or their biological capabilities exceed our understanding. An ethereal representative communicated through the translation system. Collective consciousness detects patterns that suggest these individuals have been specifically trained for scenarios beyond normal military operations. Their responses indicate preparation for conflicts we have not presented. Commander Zix-9 studied the human team through the observation chamber's transparent walls. Morrison and his soldiers stood ready for the next test with calm confidence. They showed no signs of fatigue despite completing 2 challenging scenarios in succession. Very well, the commander decided. Deploy Hunter-Killer Unit 7 for live combat evaluation. Set parameters for capture rather than elimination. I want to understand what we are dealing with. The Hunter-Killer units represented the elite of Corvani military forces. Each soldier was equipped with advanced energy weapons, powered armor, and enhanced sensory equipment. They had never failed to complete an assigned mission against any known threat. Unit 7 consisted of 6 warriors. Led by combat leader Vex-2, each member had decades of experience in conflicts across the galaxy. Their equipment included active camouflage systems, directed energy weapons, and armor capable of withstanding heavy weapons fire. The testing environment shifted to a wilderness setting with rocky terrain and limited visibility. Multiple caves and crevices provided hiding spots throughout the area. The scenario was designed to last several hours as the hunter-killers systematically located and captured the human team. Morrison studied the new environment with professional interest. His team gathered around him as he pointed out terrain features and potential positions. The conversation appeared casual but contained tactical information that escaped alien monitoring. Standard hunt and capture, Morrison said quietly. They expect us to run and hide until we're cornered, adjust accordingly. Kane nodded while examining rocks and vegetation around their starting position. Her fingers touched various surfaces as if testing their stability. She was actually identifying materials that could be used for improvised equipment. Brooks moved to higher ground and observed the surrounding area through basic optical equipment. His scan pattern seemed random but actually provided complete intelligence on approach routes and defensive positions. Foster checked her weapon and equipment with routine motions that concealed her preparation of improvised devices. Small objects disappeared into pockets and pouches as she prepared for unconventional warfare. Combat leader Vex-2 led his hunter-killers into the testing area with confidence based on centuries of successful operations. Their active camouflage systems rendered them nearly invisible to standard detection methods. Advanced sensors provided detailed information about human positions and movements. Maintain formation Alpha, Vex-2 commanded through encrypted communication. Subjects are primitive but may possess basic cunning. Approach from multiple vectors and drive them toward Capture Zone Beta. The hunter-killers advanced through terrain they had studied extensively during mission preparation. Every rock formation and vegetation cluster had been mapped and analyzed. The humans had no knowledge of the environment and should be easily trapped. Morrison's team seemed to vanish into the landscape as soon as the hunter-killers began their approach. Standard thermal imaging showed fading heat signatures that disappeared entirely within minutes. Motion detectors found only small animals and wind-blown vegetation. Vex-2 frowned as his advanced sensors failed to locate the human team. Expand. Search pattern Gamma. Subjects may have found temporary concealment. Increase sensor sensitivity and begin systematic area denial. The hunter-killers spread out to cover more ground while maintaining communication links. their weapons charged. Energy systems that could stun targets from significant distances. Capture nets and restraint devices were prepared for immediate deployment. Kane appeared behind the rearmost hunter-killer with movements so quiet that his enhanced hearing detected nothing. Her weapon had been modified with improvised suppressors that muffled the already quiet chemical projectiles. The elite soldier collapsed unconsciously before he could alert his team. Brooks positioned himself on high ground that should have been impossible to reach undetected. The hunter-killers had established sensor networks specifically to prevent such positioning. Yet somehow he had found blind spots in their coverage. Foster seemed to be in multiple locations, simultaneously as she harassed the hunter-killer formation. Movement detected in one area would draw attention while attacks came from entirely different directions. The aliens began to question their sensor readings. Morrison coordinated his team's actions through methods that remained undetectable to alien monitoring equipment. The hunter-killers found themselves responding to threats that vanished before they could be engaged effectively. Combat. Leader Vex 2 realized his unit was being systematically dismantled by opponents who seemed to understand his tactics better than he did. All units converge on position Delta. Implement emergency protocols. The hunter-killers activated additional systems that should have made them nearly invulnerable to primitive weapons. Energy shields powered up to deflect projectile weapons. Enhanced armor systems engaged to protect against explosives. Kane struck from positions that shouldn't have allowed her to bypass the energy shields. Her improvised weapons seemed to target specific vulnerabilities in advanced armor systems. Another hunter-killer fell unconscious as his sophisticated equipment failed to protect him. Brooks demonstrated an understanding of alien technology that exceeded what any primitive species should possess. His attacks disabled specific systems, while leaving others functional, suggesting detailed knowledge of Corvani military equipment. Foster appeared directly in front of combat. Leader Vex 2 despite his active camouflage and sensor countermeasures. Her weapon was aimed at his helmet's vision systems with precision that indicated she understood exactly how his equipment functioned. "Surrender your weapons and equipment," Foster said calmly. "Your mission parameters have changed." Commander. Zix-9 watched from the observation deck as his elite hunter-killer unit was systematically defeated by primitive human soldiers. The tactical display showed impossible results that challenged everything he understood about military capabilities. "How?" Lieutenant Kresh whispered. "How are they defeating our best forces with primitive equipment?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Alex Turner's image appeared on the main communication screen with a slight smile on his human features. "Gentlemen, I believe it's time for a more detailed conversation about human military capabilities," Turner said. "What you've witnessed today represents our basic training standards, not our advanced capabilities." The observation deck fell silent as alien officers tried to process this information. The humans who had just defeated elite galactic forces were apparently considered entry-level soldiers by their own species standards. Deep in his Earth facility, Turner prepared to reveal the next phase of humanity's true nature to the galactic community. Dr. Alex Turner's image dominated the main communication screen aboard the Starfall as alien officers stared in stunned silence. The defeat of their elite hunter-killer unit by primitive human soldiers had shattered their understanding of galactic military hierarchies. Turner's casual announcement that these were basic-level forces suggested something far more disturbing, Commander Zix-9 found, his voice after several moments of shocked silence. "Dr. Turner, are you claiming that the soldiers who just defeated our elite units are not your best warriors?" Turner smiled with an expression that seemed almost apologetic. "Commander, Captain Morrison and his team represent our training cadre. They teach new recruits basic military skills before those recruits advance to actual operational units." Lieutenant Kresh stepped forward with his scales shifting to aggressive colors. "Impossible. No species in the galaxy maintains instructors who surpass elite combat forces. Most species don't face the challenges that shaped human military doctrine," Turner replied. "We learned long ago that our instructors must be capable of defeating any enemy our students might encounter. Otherwise, the training is inadequate. The Nexari officer chimed with crystalline confusion. Analysis indicates logical inconsistency. If these are instructors, what capabilities do your operational forces possess? Turner's expression grew more serious. That depends on which operational forces you're referring to. We maintain different units for different types of threats. What you've seen so far involves our conventional training personnel. An ethereal representative communicated concern through the translation system. Collective consciousness detects implications that disturb galactic security assessments. Please clarify the nature of your advanced military capabilities. I think a demonstration would be more educational, Turner said. Commander, I recommend implementing your most challenging scenario, something that would test planetary defense capabilities rather than individual unit performance. Commander Zix-9 hesitated as he considered the implications. The humans had already exceeded every expectation with their basic forces. A planetary defense scenario would involve massive simulated invasions with overwhelming numerical superiority. Dr. Turner, such scenarios are designed to test entire military organizations, not individual teams. The parameters involve orbital bombardment, multiple landing zones, and enemy forces numbering in the thousands. Turner nodded. Perfect, that should provide adequate challenge for Captain Morrison's team. Please proceed with maximum difficulty settings. The observation deck buzzed with nervous conversation as alien officers prepared the most complex scenario in their evaluation database. Planetary invasion simulations were typically used to test entire species' defensive capabilities rather than small military units. Morrison and his team received notification of the new parameters through their communication systems. The tactical briefing indicated they would face simulated orbital assault followed by massive ground invasion across multiple theaters. Simultaneously, Kane checked her equipment with motions that appeared routine but actually involved preparation for extended combat operations. Her weapons were modified with attachments that seemed improvised but served specific tactical purposes. Brooks studied terrain maps that showed a continental-scale battle area. His analysis covered logistics, defensive positions, and resource management for scenarios involving millions of combatants rather than small unit actions, foster prepared communication, equipment that would coordinate actions across vast distances. Her modifications to standard gear suggested capabilities that exceeded what primitive technology should allow. Lieutenant Danny Scott joined the team as the scenario expanded beyond small unit parameters. His specialty involved large-scale tactical coordination and resource management for extended operations. His presence indicated that the humans were taking this scenario seriously. Corporal Beth Adams brought specialized equipment for dealing with orbital threats and atmospheric combat. Her gear included devices that looked crude but seemed designed for specific purposes. Related to spaced warfare, the expanded human team moved through preparation, rituals that seemed both familiar and alien to their observers. They maintained the casual confidence that had characterized their earlier performance while displaying awareness of the increased complexity. Morrison addressed his team with instructions that sounded like routine briefing material. Standard planetary defense protocols, orbital phase first, then ground operations. Remember, we're representing basic training standards, so keep it simple. The scenario materialized as a complete world under assault. Massive alien fleets filled orbital space while landing forces prepared to deploy across multiple continents. The invasion force numbered in the millions with technological superiority that should make resistance impossible. The human team seemed to dissolve into the planetary environment as the invasion began. Morrison coordinated orbital defense while Kane managed ground operations across 3 continents simultaneously. Brooks handled logistics for resistance movements that appeared from nowhere. Scott demonstrated an understanding of enemy psychology that allowed him to predict invasion patterns before they developed. His countermeasures targeted specific weaknesses in alien command structures that shouldn't have been visible to ground-based forces. Adams engaged orbital platforms using improvised weapons that somehow achieved effects equivalent to advanced space-based systems. Her attacks disabled invasion fleets through methods that confused alien observers who couldn't understand the technology involved. Foster coordinated civilian evacuations while simultaneously directing military operations across multiple time zones. Her ability to manage complex operations suggested training far beyond what any galactic species provided to individual soldiers. The invasion force found itself fighting enemies who seemed to know their plans before they were implemented. Landing zones were compromised before troops could deploy. Supply lines were disrupted by forces that appeared from impossible positions. Commander Zix-9 watched tactical displays that showed his simulated invasion force being systematically destroyed by opponents who shouldn't exist. This is impossible. No single team can coordinate planetary defense operations. Turner's voice carried amusement as he responded. Commander, you're still thinking in terms of individual soldiers. Morrison's team operates as a collective intelligence network. Each member represents multiple operational capabilities simultaneously. Lieutenant Kresh studied sensor readings that made no sense according to galactic military doctrine. They appear to be in multiple locations at once. Our tracking systems indicate simultaneous presence across continents. That's because you're observing enhanced human capabilities, Turner explained. Captain Morrison and his team have been trained to function as force multipliers. Each individual can coordinate operations that would normally require entire staff organizations. The Nexari officer chimed with growing alarm. Analysis indicates human forces are not using detectable communication methods yet, maintaining perfect coordination across planetary distances. This suggests capabilities beyond known physics. Turner's expression grew more serious. Gentlemen, what you're witnessing is the result of human military evolution under unique pressures. We didn't develop these capabilities to fight aliens. We developed them to fight other humans who had learned these same techniques. The observation deck fell silent as the implications became clear. The humans weren't demonstrating their capabilities against alien forces. They were showing what they had developed for conflicts against equally capable human opponents. Morrison's voice came through the communication system with the same casual confidence he had shown throughout the evaluation. Scenario complete. Commander, enemy forces neutralized. Planetary defense successful with minimal casualties. The tactical displays confirmed impossible results. A simulated invasion force of millions had been defeated by a team of 6 human soldiers. Orbital fleets were destroyed, ground forces were routed, and planetary infrastructure remained intact. Time to completion? Commander Zix-9 asked in a voice that barely controlled his shock. 4 hours, 17 minutes, the monitoring officer reported. Previous record for planetary defense scenarios was held by the combined Corvani defense fleet at 68 hours, 43 minutes. Morrison looked up toward the observation deck. Dr. Turner, should we demonstrate advanced protocols? Or is this sufficient for evaluation purposes? Turner's image on the screen showed a slight smile. I think our galactic friends have seen enough for now, Captain. Return your team to standby status. Commander Zix-9 found himself staring at performance metrics that redefined his understanding of military capabilities. The humans had not only completed an impossible scenario, they had suggested it was routine training rather than their maximum effort. Dr. Turner, the commander said slowly, what exactly are these advanced protocols Captain Morrison mentioned? Turner's expression became more serious. Commander, what you've witnessed represents our conventional forces. The advanced protocols involve personnel we prefer not to deploy unless absolutely necessary. The silence aboard the Starfall stretched for long minutes as alien officers struggled to process what they had witnessed. Commander Zix-9 stood frozen before the main communication screen where Dr. Alex Turner waited patiently for their response. The implications of humanity's demonstration had shattered every assumption about galactic military hierarchies. Lieutenant Kresh was the first to find his voice, though it carried uncertainty rather than his usual confident aggression. Dr. Turner, you mentioned individuals who were too effective for conventional service. What exactly does that mean in human terms? Turner's expression grew thoughtful as he considered how to explain concepts that had no equivalent in Galactic. Military doctrine. Lieutenant, most species develop military forces to defend against external threats. Humans developed forces to defend against the possibility that we might become our own greatest threat. The Nexari officer chimed with crystalline confusion. Analysis indicates logical contradiction. How can a species pose a threat to itself that requires specialized military response? Because humans learned something that most galactic species never had to face, Turner replied. We discovered that our greatest enemy wasn't alien invasion or natural disaster. Our greatest enemy was other humans who had perfected the art of warfare beyond all reasonable limits. An ethereal representative communicated through the translation system with growing alarm. Collective consciousness requires clarification of this concept. Please explain the nature of human internal conflicts that required such extreme responses. Turner activated a new display that showed historical human conflicts with analytical overlays. The data streams revealed patterns of escalating capability and sophistication that painted a disturbing picture of human military evolution. Every major human conflict taught us new methods of warfare, Turner explained. Each generation of soldiers became more effective than the last. Each war produced innovations that made the previous generation obsolete. We reached a point where individual humans could threaten entire civilizations. Commander Zix-9 studied the data with growing comprehension. The human military history wasn't just a record of violence. It was documentation of accelerated evolution. Under extreme pressure, the Baba Yaga project was created to handle humans who had evolved beyond conventional limitations, Turner continued. These individuals possessed capabilities that made them too dangerous for normal military service, but too valuable to simply eliminate. Morrison's voice came through the communication system from the testing area. Dr. Turner, we have a priority. Communication from Earth Command. Sergeant Major Hayes is requesting permission to address the Galactic Evaluation Committee. Turner's expression shifted to something approaching concern. Patch him through, Captain. Commander Zix-9. I should warn you that Sergeant Major Tom Hayes represents the operational level of the Baba Yaga project. A new image appeared on the communication screen alongside Turner's. The man who materialized had the bearing of someone who had seen conflicts that broke lesser individuals. His face carried scars that spoke of battles fought with weapons beyond conventional warfare. His eyes held depths that suggested experiences most beings couldn't comprehend. Gentlemen, Hayes said in a voice that carried quiet authority, I understand you have questions about human military capabilities. I'm authorized to provide clarification. Lieutenant Kresh leaned forward with aggressive posture that indicated his reptilian instincts were responding to a perceived threat. Are you claiming to represent forces superior to those we have already witnessed? Hayes smiled with an expression that made several alien observers step back involuntarily. Superior is the wrong word, Lieutenant. Different is more accurate. Captain Morrison and his team represent our training cadre. They teach conventional human soldiers how to fight external enemies. And what do you teach? Commander Zix-9 asked with reluctance. I teach individuals how to hunt other humans who have learned everything Captain Morrison teaches, Hayes replied. The Baba Yaga project handles threats that conventional forces cannot address, because conventional forces are not psychologically equipped to handle them. The Nexari officer chimed with alarm. Analysis indicates human military doctrine includes preparations for conflicts against human opponents with capabilities equivalent to those demonstrated today. Hayes nodded. Correct. The greatest threat to human civilization has always been humans who had perfected warfare beyond reasonable limits. We developed the Baba Yaga project to handle individuals who had become too effective at their profession. Ethereal representative communicated growing horror. Collective consciousness detects implications that human military evolution includes preparation for conflicts against opponents of unlimited capability. This suggests warfare beyond galactic understanding. Which brings us to the current situation, Hayes said with casual directness. Gentlemen, what you observed today was a demonstration of our conventional capabilities. Captain Morrison's team represents soldiers who failed to qualify for advanced training because they retained too much humanity. Commander Zix-9 felt a chill of comprehension. Failed to qualify? You mean they were rejected from your elite forces? They were rejected because they still cared about things like proportional response and minimizing casualties, Hayes explained. The Baba Yaga project requires individuals who can set aside such considerations when necessary. Turner's image showed concern as he added context. Commander, the Baba Yaga operatives are individuals who were removed from normal human society. Because their capabilities posed risks to civilian populations? They are our solution for threats that cannot be handled through conventional military action. Lieutenant Crush's scales had shifted to colors that indicated extreme agitation. What kind of threats require such individuals? Hayes answered with matter-of-fact directness. Rogue human colonies that have developed capabilities beyond Federation control. Human criminal organizations that have acquired technology or training beyond legal limits. Human individuals who have become so dangerous that normal law enforcement cannot approach them. The observation deck fell silent as alien officers realized the implications. Humanity had developed military forces specifically designed to hunt other humans who had achieved capabilities that exceeded galactic military standards. The evaluation is complete, Commander Zix-9 announced with formal precision. Earth is hereby granted immediate Federation membership with special military contractor status. All member species are authorized to request human military assistance for conflicts beyond their conventional capabilities. Hayes smiled with an expression that suggested satisfaction. Excellent. We have several ongoing operations that could benefit from expanded operational parameters. Dr. Turner, please forward the current threat assessment files to Federation Command. Morrison's team returned to the transport area with the same casual confidence they had shown throughout the evaluation. They appeared to consider the redefinition of galactic military standards as routine training rather than exceptional performance. Captain Morrison, Commander Zix-9 said through the communication system, your performance today has been ... educational. We would be honored to work with human forces in future operations. Morrison smiled with genuine warmth. Thank you, Commander. My team and I are always ready to assist our galactic neighbors. We look forward to working together. As the humans prepared for transport back to Earth, alien officers began updating their military assessments and strategic planning documents. The galaxy had just gained allies whose capabilities redefined the concept of military effectiveness deep in his Earth facility. Dr. Turner smiled as he received confirmation that the evaluation had proceeded exactly as planned. The galactic community now understood that humanity offered capabilities they hadn't known existed. More importantly, they understood that Earth's definition of military service operated on scales that most species couldn't imagine. The Baba Yaga project remained in the shadows, ready to handle threats that even the galaxy's newest military contractors couldn't address through conventional means. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community not as primitive warriors seeking protection, but as the solution to problems that other species couldn't solve.